Hello, my name is Scott Fratcher, captain of a Catana 582 named Mariah for the last 2 years, and I'm going to try to make a turnover video, so that whoever happens to take over Mariah next can hopefully just walk in and take a quick look at the boat and watch this video and get underway. Now, we didn't have any of that when we picked up Mariah, and well, it took a while. You know, we had to figure out each system and track them out and look and find where all the valves are, and oh man, it just went on and on. And so I'm going to try to save you that particular hassle. So this is our navigation system right up here, navigation table you might say, and we'd spend a lot of time sitting right here if we were underway. And so I'm going to go over the equipment with you real quick and hopefully give you a little starter kit. So over there we have the handheld VHF radio. Right in front of it is the handheld strobe. That little handset that says NERA right over here, this little handset, that's the satellite. We have a Fleet 55 which hooks up to a satellite system, and that's the handset if you want to make a phone call. We'll go over all these pieces of equipment in a little bit more detail as soon as I tell you what each piece of equipment is. This is a wind speed indicator. Right now we've got about 21, 22 knots, something like that. And this is our wind angle indicator, apparent wind angle indicator, and this actually shows wind over the port bow right now. We'll get into that more in just in a couple minutes. Simrad AP20 autopilot head. This is for setting the autopilot. Our VHF radio right here. This is a French VHF radio, and so for people that haven't had French equipment before, you might not recognize that as a VHF. Navigation, computer-controlled navigation system right here, and this little navigation system right here is a keyboard down here that goes to it, plus this mouse. And the laptop computer is mainly for who's ever on watch, so they can be writing letters home and all that, and it won't interfere with the navigation system. So if they get it all wrong or they lock up the computer, our navigation system continues on. So this is a personal laptop completely separate from the navigation system. Okay, I'm going to make a little flip around right here, go to my other side. This is our Faruna radar right here, 24-mile radar. An interface forward-looking sonar, which we'll get into in a minute. The Hercules 2000, this is our readout telling us kind of speed, depth, things like that. Wind angle, all that kind of gives it to us in digital form. Faruna GPS, and our alarm system right here, and of course way over here we have our Iridium handheld phone. So I'm going to go over each one of these pieces of equipment in a little bit more detail. So we'll start over on this side over here. There's a 12-volt outlet. There's a 12-volt outlet back here. You might use it to perhaps charge a cell phone or whatever you need 12 volts for. Directly underneath it is a 110-volt outlet. Mariah is 110 volts, 60 hertz. But there is a big transformer located under there if you need 220 volts, still 60 hertz though. So this is our VHF radio right here, and just a little handheld. Take it out in the skiff with you if you're sending people out in the skiff. Very simple device right there. Turn it on with this knob right here, and this is our squelch. Turn down the squelch, and you'll hear the squelch right there. And not much to it, just scroll through the channels, and there you are. Back to 16 is just that little priority 16. One thing to note, little screw down here on the bottom. That's how you undo to get into the battery pack right there. Open that up. This takes probably 8 alkaline batteries, and so it's not a rechargeable VHF. We use 8 alkaline batteries, and if you have good batteries like Duracell, something like that, that probably gives you maybe 10 hours of receive time or maybe 2 hours of talking time. So use it wisely. The next piece of equipment in here is our handheld strobe, and so this strobe is for who's ever on the helm, so who's ever working on the who's ever on watch. So most of the time people will be carrying their own strobe light also, but if you're on watch and you have to run out on the back deck to adjust a sheet line or take a look around, then you grab this strobe and take it with you, just in case the unlikely event that you were to perhaps fall overboard, or you could go back and get your helmsman. This right here is our NERA Fleet 55 handset. So this is the handset that attaches to the satellite communication system. That's that big dome on the back deck. Kind of looks like R2-D2 from the old Star Wars movies. And underneath this cushion right here, around the corner, there's a nearer box. And if you were to reach around like this, you would feel a little sliding switch. And you could slide that switch up, and that turns on the nearer. We leave it off because it takes a few amps, and while we're sitting here in port, we don't want to just be wearing out our electrical, the electronics right there. And so we leave it off most of the time, but as soon as we get underway, we turn it back on. Now what would happen is if you flicked on the switch, this little screen up here, I'm trying to hold this still for the filming, this little screen up here would come up. It would say searching. It would take probably 2 or 3, 4 minutes of searching. Then it would come up and say satellites acquired and ready for call. If you wanted to make a call, you would hit 00 and then followed by the country code. So let's say that the country is I don't know, maybe New Zealand. So you do 0064, then the area code, New Zealand, let's say 9 would be Auckland, so it would be 00649, and then the local phone number. If you were calling San Francisco, it would be 00 for the international, 1 for the country code, 415 for the area code, and then let's say you were calling Sausalito, 331, and then of course whatever the number is. So a call on the satellite phone system right there is about maybe $2.50 a minute, something like that. Quite expensive. Nothing's cheap on the in the satellite world. But and if you want to surf the internet, you can use that same system for surfing the internet. That's about $6 a minute for 30K of transmit speed. And I'll show you when we get to the navigation system how you would hook up to the internet. So we'll get you a head start over there also. Okay, now we come over to the Autopilot. Autopilot's quite simple. You're going along, you sailing or motoring, get the boat on the course that you want. When it all feels good, you've got pretty much a neutral helm. You're not having to work to hold course, and you balanced your sails, so the boat's sailing quite well. Just push auto. And there's 3 helms, by the way. There's 3 autopilot heads, all these AP20s. There's 1 at each helm outside, and there's 1 right here in the nav station. So you push auto and change course by rotating this little knob right here. And I'll let you read the manual to get the full of how everything works. But in the meantime, you'll turn that little knob that would set your course. You'll notice that there is a course and then a heading and then a rudder angle indicator down here. Okay, these actually are quite important because the course and the heading should remain pretty much the same. You know, they could be a few degrees difference, but maybe 3 or 5 degrees difference. 5 degrees would be a lot. 2 or 3 degrees would be about right, because what you don't want to have happen is the boat and the rudder working and the auto helm working to hold your course, and you're not really realizing it because well, the boat kind of seems like it's on course and you're sailing along until finally she gets so far, the rudders have to work so hard that eventually you would broach or lose control of the vessel. So one of the ways that you would be knowing that this is not going to be happening to you is you'd be watching the rudder angle indicator here, and you should be expecting probably 2 degrees to port, 2 degrees to starboard, 2 degrees to port, 2 degrees to starboard, and that would be about max. By the time you're hitting 3 degrees to port, 3 degrees to starboard, that's 6 degrees of rudder swing. Something is probably up, and you should be considering taking manual control of the boat and getting a feel and seeing if maybe you have some weather helm going, maybe something is causing the boat to slur around, possibly dagger boards have to go down a little bit, maybe dagger boards have to come up a little bit, might be time to take a reef. There'll be a reason if you're getting over 2 degrees port and 2 degrees starboard. Also, you'll be, I'm going to push standby now just so that the auto helm isn't trying to hold course here at the dock. It's left here at 19 degrees probably from our last docking, or just how the helm happens to be sitting. The other thing is take note of your rudder angle indicator if it's going 0 to 3 degrees. 0 to 3 degrees. Well, that means that we may have some weather helm. That may mean that the gearbox is slipping. If you're motoring, a gearbox may be slipping and one engine's pushing harder than the other, and so that might give you an early warning that a gearbox is overheating down in the engine room, or that possibly that your mainsail is sheeted in too tight and you've got weather helm. And so so these are the things that, because sailing a big cat is more sailing by the numbers than sailing by feel. So eventually you'll feel, but when you first jump on, you won't really know how she feels when she's sailing really well or when she's sailing, because she'll continue to sail, move along 7, 8 knots just fine, even if things aren't balanced or trimmed correctly. Okay, we come down here to wind speed. It's just a dial speed sitting there at about 19 knots right now, all very simple stuff. angle indicator. This gives us our apparent wind angle, and the wind is slightly coming over the port bow right now. People oftentimes set up these. You can set them up any way you want, and so I'm just giving you a heads up of how this particular wind angle indicator is set up. That wind right now is slightly over the port bow, so probably pointed about that way. And I've seen people hook these things up so that would mean that you're broad reaching, so that's why I mentioned this. Okay, we come over to the VHF. Come down here. This is a French VHF. You push on right there, and here we come up to channel 16. Now, I normally don't leave this on when we're sitting in port, mainly because it makes a god-awful hiss all the time. It's just hissing in the background, and so we try to get rid of that by turning off the VHF. In fact, if you were to upgrade equipment, it would be good to upgrade this VHF because that hiss is like a steady irritant. To change channels, you would let's say we wanted to go to channel 14, you would push 1.4, then this E down here, and now we've switched to channel 1.4. Push that button right there. See how transmit comes up next to the 1.4? That means that we're transmitting to go back to channel 16. Push the 1.6. Volumes are kind of this clunky set of buttons right here, and squelch are the squelch buttons. And you'll note that squelch is not the hiss I'm talking about. There's a kind of a whiny hiss that comes all the time, separate from the squelch. So for that reason, I'm going to turn off the VHF, and we'll come over here to our navigation system. So this is a Max C running CMAP charts through the Tuamotus and the Society Islands. It's been very accurate. It was a little bit off in the Cooks, very far off in Tonga, and pretty far off in Samoa also. So the charts aren't always meant to be trusted, but I'm leaving a bunch of track lines up here from places that we've been, and since we've never hit anything, you can probably get onto those track lines. And if you're trying to get in some place that we've already been, then you can follow a track line. Note that the track lines have a color to them in the background right there. That color tells you how fast we were traveling at that point. Green is about 4 knots. Yellow is probably about 7 or 8 knots. Red might even be more like 10 knots. We must have been sailing when we left that track line. And then you see we have a let's say this one right here. We've got a yellow line, changes to green, we're slowing down coming into port, changes to blue, which is under 2 knots. And so a few things to know about on this system. One of them is this cursor data box. This tells us how far away and what direction magnetically the cursor is from the boat. So let's say I put the cursor over here. I'm 49 degrees and 0.814 nautical miles. Under that, it's telling us 3 hours to get there. Now, if we were actually moving, it would be calculating the speed. Not velocity made good speed, but it would be calculating the speed of how long at our current speed. So we could almost be sailing 90 degrees to the course. So that time to go is not really useful or accurate, but there it is on the screen. We can grab this cursor box, slide it around if we want, move it if it's in the way. I tend to leave it up here in the upper right-hand corner. To change zoom, normally we've got a toolbar up here and allows you to choose what tool you want the cursor to be on. Probably the most common that you would use are either the hand, or next to it are the dividers. So we'll go over the hand first, then the dividers, and after that you can read the manual, because this will kind of get you a starter kit. To zoom, you right click, and now you see scale, zoom in, zoom out. You can zoom in or zoom out. That's 1 notch at a time. Or you can go to scale, and let's say scale, I'll go to 1 million. And when I zoom to 1 million and left click on 1 million, now we've backed out to the 1 million zoom right there. And so you can see that's Raiatea and Huahine, Bora Bora up here, and Tahiti down here, and Moorea here. So that kind of gives you the big picture. And then if we wanted to zoom again, we would, now I'm going to do something here. I'm going to move that screen just a little bit. You see that I left clicked, and then I grabbed, and the hand will move the screen around for me. Okay, now I'm going to right click, scale, and let's say I want 25,000. Now, see how we just zoomed into 25,000 kind of randomly someplace out there in the middle of the ocean? And so now if we want to find out where our boat is and get the boat centered back on us, we come up here to the upper left-hand side of the screen, upper left-hand side, and there's that red boat. Not this red boat up here in the middle of the toolbar, but the little red boat that looks almost identical on the upper left-hand side of the screen. Single click and that'll center on the boat's position from the GPS, and there we are. There's the boat. And so now I can zoom in again. I can go one notch at a time by clicking zoom in, or I can go to scale. Now when I go to scale, you'll see one number is in bold. That's the zoom range that we have. Then also next to the zoom range, next to the scale, I guess you'll call it, there are these little green boxes. That symbolizes that we're actually going to change charts. And so because although these charts are all overlaid on each other, on one chart we can continue to zoom in on various scales of charts. Okay, so here's our next chart. This is 5,000. Looks very similar. It's probably just a somebody else maybe even used the previous chart to zoom to build a chart from. Okay, so that's pretty much it for get you a starter kit on the navigation right there. Let's talk about the satellite phone system. So I minimize. Oftentimes you'll come, and this is the screen that you'll have. If you wanted to open up the MAXI, the charting system, you'll click over here on MAXI and you'll double click on MAXI, double left click, and the charting system will open up. Note that there's a blue dongle right down here in the USB expansion ports right there, and also on the back of this USB expansion port is a little USB cable. If that little USB cable on the back of the expansion ports falls out, or this dongle comes loose, then you won't be able to access MAXI. So first thing to do, if it comes up and says do you want an emergency code or something like that, first thing to do is check that dongle, check and make sure that the little UPS extension plug is all plugged in. And if you go to move your mouse like this and you see the mouse moving, that tells you that the extension plug is actually plugged in. So then now you can go straight to the mouse. And if you go to move the mouse and you don't get any action, then you're probably in the extension plug. I mention this because this stuff gets jostled all the time and the boat's getting knocked around and things that we've experienced over time. Okay, you come on over here, you see Satphone. Can you see that over there around me? Okay, so now we come up to Satphone. You'll double click on Satphone, and now it comes up connect to Satphone, and now you would hit dial right here, and you don't have to enter a password or anything. You hit dial, and the computer then will take about 20 or 30 seconds, and it'll say connected. That means that now you have connected to the internet through the satellite system. Next thing that you would do is come maybe down here. You'd open up Internet Explorer. You could do that from this little bottom of the toolbar right there. Now I'm going to tell you that's $6 a minute to surf the net here, and it's really slow. So one of the things I do is I would first open Internet Explorer, and that saves me about 30 or 40 seconds of opening time, which is $3 that we save. It may not sound like much, but if you're going to do this once a day at the end of the month, that's well, probably $100 or something that you can buy French fries with. Okay, so now you pick up, you surf whatever you're gonna surf. Let's say that you're looking for a part because something broke. Okay, so we're going to now talk about how to get the Satphone to work. Had a little battery change in there, so you might see a little blip on the screen. I come over here to Satphone, double click on Satphone, and I get this little connect Satphone. I'll click on dial over here, and probably 30 seconds later we would connect to the Satphone, and it takes about maybe 30 seconds for the computer and all that to hook up. Now, this Satphone is $6 a minute for very slow internet connection. So you come on over here, I would come on over here to the Internet Explorer, which is this guy right down here on the bottom left, and I would open that beforehand because that normally takes about 30 seconds to open. So that way that's already open by the time that you hit connect to Satphone. And so you can go straight into your surfing mode. Now, I should also mention that when you finish, you need to come back over here, because now once you've connected, this guy here will be all off like that. Come back over here and double click on Satphone again, where it says dial right here will be disconnect, and then you'll click on disconnect. If you forget to click on disconnect, even if you turn off the computer, the Satphone itself stays connected, and I don't know what that costs, but I think it'll ring up a bill of about like $1,500 or something, just sitting there idling without actually transferring any data. Doesn't seem right to me, but that's what it does. So the other way to disconnect is to right-click on Satphone, and where it says connect right here, that would become a disconnect. So you can right-click on Satphone and click disconnect, or you can double-click and click connect, or click disconnect. Either way. Lastly, if everything goes wrong and for some reason the computer shuts down or you get a computer lockup, meanwhile you're paying $6 a minute to be kind of hooked up to the internet, the other thing you can do is go on over and reach your finger around and turn off the nearest Satphone back there, as I explained how to turn it on there a few minutes ago. So you got a few options for how to disconnect. Don't forget to disconnect. Remember, it's going to cost a lot of money if you don't disconnect. Okay, we're going to switch on over here to the other side of the screen now. This is our radar. I'm going to turn on our radar, and our radar is going to come up with a little screen saying 60 seconds warm-up. At the same time, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pull the cover to the interface, and I'll just put that cover off to the side, and I'm going to push the button for the interface. And now this interface is a forward-looking sonar and depth sounder. And I'm going to say don't believe anything it tells you, especially about what's forward-looking. In fact, I've talked to probably about 12 people that have an interface forward-looking sonar. One swears by it. Everybody else tells me that they've never gotten any use out of it, and all it's ever done is scare them because it doesn't actually show you what's ahead of you. And that's been my experience also. We've had this head back to interface, and it came back, had no particular gain. Richard always comes when we're filming, huh? Come on up, Richard! We're filming again! Come on up! Okay, so so you'll see. When you're Captain of Mariah, you'll see. There's people coming by all day long. You're going to be busy. And anyway, so the interface doesn't really do much for you. It's kind of a bummer, but anyway, I put it out there. We've also taken the transducers, and we've switched them port to starboard, starboard to port, thinking that was going to make some difference, and it didn't make any difference either. Okay, radar on over here. It's gone through the broadcast mode. Now it's on transmit. So now it's on. So I push TX to transmit. And a couple things to know about this radar. One of them is the magnetron's probably starting to go out. I noticed that we're getting a few fading in far off signals. So sea clutter and targets kind of mixed together now, so that lets us know that the magnetron's probably getting a little bit tired. If you're engineering minded, you can take a magnetron, and it's only four little connections. You can hook it up if you want, or else you can call the radar guy, or you can just live with it. We've been living with it, and it's no big deal. It'll probably give you a few more years of service before the magnetron goes out the rest of the way. A couple things: push plus, that changes your range right here. Plus again changes your range. You can swing this little cursor out around here by this upper cursor moving pad right there. That's kind of cool. And then it'll tell you down here 311 degrees from the bow of the boat, not magnetic, but 311 degrees from the bow of the boat, 1.83 miles away. One little trick that you can do is you can find something that's on the chart that you can identify from radar. Let's say that it was that little spot right there, and it's 0.75 miles away. And then if you found that same spot by on your chart, and you could let's say put the cursor over it, and let's say it comes up to 0.718 miles, then you'll know that the chart is actually 0.4 miles different than the radar. And of course the radar is going to be the true answer right there. So that would tell us that that there's an inconsistency there, and gives you an early warning when you're coming into port if the chart itself is going to be accurate. So that's just a little trick right there. Next one is electric bearing line, EBL, electric bearing line, and so I push EBL once, and EBL is highlighted down here. As long as EBL is highlighted, then I have access to it through this little touchpad. As soon as EBL goes out, now I'm back to the cursor. I don't know if you can see the cursor moving there, so I would have to hit EBL again. EBL highlights, and now I can move my electric bearing line around. Same with the variable range marker. I can access my variable range marker right here, and through through this little touchpad right here, and if you hold it for a while, suddenly it'll double in speed. So there's my variable range marker. Let's say I put that X over a target because I'm tracking a target. I want to see if we're on collision course, and then now we're off the collision course. We realize it's all fine, so I can hold EBL for 2 seconds. EBL disappears. Hold VRM for 2 seconds, and that kind of gets you a starter kit on the Furuno. After that, hit transmit, let it sit for about a minute or two, then you can push power to turn it off. To change the range on the interface, you push that push range once, and then you can push the up and down buttons and change the range. The range and the depth change together. So although the depth sounder here is pretty accurate, the forward-looking sonar part is not accurate at all. Hercules, wind indicator right here. Hit speed and depth, and that gives you boat speed and also gives you depth. Sometimes depth doesn't show up, and you have to hit a second time to get the second line of information under there. You can do the same thing with wind. Right now we've got an apparent wind speed of 15, 16 knots. Shows the same on our little wind speed indicator. Coming 6 degrees off the port bow. Little dashes on the port side shows that the wind is coming off the port bow. People set these up differently. That's why I mentioned how the port and starboard are shown. VHF, not much. GPS, not much to know about the GPS. It's just a basic Furuno. I particularly don't like Furuno. They don't give us map datums, and of course we all know what map datums is, right? I'm sure you know what a map datum is, and so it's a bummer to be coming in on a paper chart and not have a map datum on the Furuno. Garmin's probably have 150 map datums. Furuno's gives you 3. Yeah, not very good. And I don't know why they miss on that, but they really do. The other thing that Furunos don't tend to have is velocity made good. If you want map datums and velocity made good, oftentimes I'll take a Garmin GPS, plug it into the 12-volt outlet that's over there, and leave it sitting up here somewhere, and then I have a velocity made good, and that. And I'm not going to go into what velocity made good is because I'm sure you know, if you're taking over Mariah, you'll know what a map datum and a velocity made good and a chart datum are. But I'll give you the update when you go to search for it on Furuno. It won't be there because they didn't give it to us. This is an alarm system right here. The alarm system itself feeds into the Satphone, and somebody in France is supposed to pick up the phone and give us a call when we have an alarm going off, or our designated person. Since I've never gotten a call from France, we do pay $300 every 6 months for the service, but I've never actually gotten a call back from France. So I do hope somebody's doing more than just running the Visa card on the other end. If you're going to make a sea passage, it might be worthwhile to find out who the designated person is. The designated person is who should also be on your EPIRB, your 406 EPIRB that's down here. And if you ever had to abandon ship or an alarm was going off, then you would take that 406 EPIRB with you, which should be giving you a location. I think the battery's just about expired on that, October 2010, if I remember right. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I think that's when it was going to expire. Should be the same designated person as this alarm right here. The internal battery on this little panel right here I think has gone bad, and so oftentimes what happens is we'll turn off the batteries to let something on the boat reset, and we turn it back on, and it'll probably sound the alarm for 10 or 12 minutes while the internal battery recharges. So no real way to get rid of the alarm at that point. Once the internal battery charges, you can come over here and push 1 and 2 at the same time and hold it for a few seconds, and the alarm will go off. One more piece of equipment is this, the Iridium. Now the Iridium phone, you have a few options here. This little plug on this side, you can push that plug in, and underneath here, right about where my finger is, and my finger's on it right now, there's a little outlet for a regular telephone jack. And now you can put a regular telephone, and anytime you want to use a phone, you can pick up just a regular household telephone and dial. We don't tend to use that. What we do is we keep this guy plugged in on the other side, which plugs in right about there, and that charges the Iridium. When you want to use it, you push this top button, pop the Iridium out. You'll grab this guy right here and put the external antenna in, flip it up, extend the antenna, push C right there, or push OK, and the Iridium will turn on. Once the Iridium turns on, it'll ask you for a PIN number. The PIN number is 1111. Hit OK. It'll go into search mode, search for the satellite. Once it finds a satellite, then you're ready to dial. If you want to dial the states, it would be 001. 00 gets you international, 1 gets you the country code. So if you're dialing Auckland, it'd be 0064, wherever it is in Auckland. Let's say Auckland's 9. If you were dialing let's say you want to dial Cleveland, it would be 00 for the international, 1 for the country code, 216 for the local area code, and then whatever local phone number that you have. When you're done, you push C, and it disconnects. Once you're done, you can take the you take this antenna, collapse it, release the antenna like that. Go back into the bottom over here, plug the Iridium back in, push the charger back on, and then you're charging the phone, and then it'll be sitting there ready for the next use. Oftentimes it sits there and beeps. That's why I pulled the cables out while we were sitting here to do the video, so you don't have to listen to the beep. But if you're charging, you probably have to listen to the beep, and after a day or two, you'll get tired of the beep. Figure the battery's charged, and you'll pull the cable out, and then after you use it a few times, the battery will be dead, and you'll be ready for another round of charge and beep. Okay, that's about it. My Furuno is off, and I'm going to turn off my interface right here, and that's about it. The rest of all this would just stay just like it is, and that's pretty much how we would leave the boat if we were sitting in port. A few other quick things, just a few navigation things under the chart table. Over here we have all of the manuals and paper charts are under this side right here. There's another little top shelf right here. Sometimes we throw a camera or something like that in there if we want to keep it out of public view and yet still have access to it. Down here on the other side, we have a few manuals and one more thing. We keep a little guy right here, and these are just all the spare cables. You'll see. You'll have a bunch of computers and stuff, and most of this will be gone because this is mostly how we connect our computer system up. But you'll bring your computer, and that gives us the extra cables. Everything else that you see sitting around here is because we're making videos to show you, so it looks probably disorganized with 100 cables around, but most of that will be gone once we leave too. So that's about it. I think that's the navigation system, and we'll move on to a few other systems of the boat. And after that, you should be ready to take over. Thank you now. Bye.